I wanted to talk a little bit today about equalization and electoral reform. A lot of people here in Alberta feel that they're being treated unfairly in the electoral process and with the equalization program. I believe, along with many other Albertans, that the equalization program is unfair and broken. If you take a look at the amount of money that Alberta has contributed to the equalization program over the years, they are the main contributor by percentage. They contribute more than any other province per capita. They contribute more than any other province on a dollar level. And the fact is that it's unfair that one portion of the country is perpetually transferring money and propping up other parts of the country. I will say this, with respect to the fiscal stabilization program and equalization rebates, the formula is broken. Alberta had a deficit in 2018 and 2019, and they still received nothing. Almost every province, it seems, receives some money from equalization other than Alberta. This needs to change, and I will advocate for that as your Member of Parliament here in Banff-Airdrie. Another thing I wanted to say with respect to electoral reform is that when you look at population, Alberta is underrepresented with respect to the number of MPs that they have. This particular riding that we're in now has nearly 140,000 people living in it, and we're only one riding. In many other parts of the country, you're looking at 120,000, roughly 100,000, sometimes less than 100,000 people in a riding. And yet here we have nearly 140,000 people for one riding. This is not uncommon here in Alberta. We need to see more ridings in Alberta. It's fair based on the population, and we need to make sure that we have representation fairly based on our population as it is across the country as well. Thank you for listening to this today. There are many ideas about how to reform equalization and what things should change and what things should remain. But the fact is we can all agree that the system is broken, and we need to make sure that one part of the country is not perpetually propping up other parts of the country. It's not right. It's not fair. This is something I will always fight for as your Member of Parliament. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to talk to you today a little bit about provincial jurisdiction. I'm running here as the independent Member of Parliament for Banff-Airdrie. I have a great track record you can look at online. I was a former Conservative Member of Parliament. I ran for the leadership. I was kicked out of that party because I was too vocal and honest about issues that are important to Canadians. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about provincial jurisdiction. Not a day goes by where we don't see the federal government infringing on provincial autonomy. I think we need to be very clear that the federal government should not be meddling in provincial jurisdiction, whether it's shutting down pipelines here in Alberta or whether it's doing other things that may not seem bad, but in fact do infringe upon provincial jurisdiction. My general idea is that the federal government in Ottawa needs to be much smaller and less involved in provincial affairs. I would prefer, for example, instead of transferring money for healthcare to provinces that were collected through federal tax revenue, to have smaller federal taxes and give that space to the provinces to raise their own money for healthcare. This is the type of thing that puts the responsibility for provincial jurisdiction into the hands of your provincial leaders. If the federal government is funding healthcare, then the province can simply blame the federal government for not giving them enough or not increasing it enough when there's issues with provincial healthcare. As far as I'm concerned, when it comes to areas of provincial control, the province, as much as possible, should be raising their own funds for it. This means that they'll be more likely to innovate and come up with solutions to use their own money in better ways. Furthermore, they will be responsible for the outcome of the healthcare without being able to blame it on the feds, who then blame it on the province. It's a game of hot potato where no one jurisdiction takes responsibility for anything, and it's not fair to you as an Albertan, as a citizen here in Canada. We need to give the provinces more room. We need to give them more tax room so that they can raise money for things that are under their jurisdiction. I will always fight for provincial autonomy according to the Constitution. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about property rights and also gun control. Our property rights in this country are under attack. Whether we're farmers or whether we're gun owners or whether we're business owners, our rights to own property, to operate a business, to hunt, to sport shoot, are under attack. And there's other examples, but these are the most salient ones in my view. The government is always intruding on private property and telling farmers and others what they can and can't do. They're intruding on business rights, telling them when they can be open, when they can't. This is what we've seen with COVID-19 is awful for small business owners, and I know because I used to be a small business owner. It is impossible to plan if you don't know if your business is going to be open or shut down. This is not good for investment. This is not good for 2-year plans, for 5-year plans. We need to focus on property rights in this country. When it comes to another example that's near to me is firearms ownership, gun rights. The government, with the stroke of a pen, can make tens of thousands of dollars of property that someone has purchased legally illegal overnight. It is wrong that the government has the ability to do this. We have been focusing too much on lawful firearms owners and not enough on criminals. I'll give you an example that I had happen to me when I was in Parliament just this past year. In the same week, we debated Bill C-21 and Bill C-22. Bill C-21 was a bill that made it harder for legal firearms owners to own and operate certain firearms. Bill C-22 eliminated certain sentencing, certain mandatory minimums for people who were committing firearms-related crimes. So on one hand, you're attacking law-abiding gun owners, and on the other hand, you're reducing penalties for the gang members and others that are actually committing crimes with generally stolen or smuggled firearms. You know, the fact that we're debating these bills in the same week shows you the lack of logic that exists in Ottawa. Our community of firearms owners in Canada who acquire their firearms legally and who are obeying the laws that exist here are not a problem. They are not unsafe. They are more law-abiding on average than an average person. They are an extremely law-abiding group. There's no question about this. And yet we have gang members and other elements of crime that are using guns, most often stolen or smuggled across the border. And we're going lenient on them, and yet we're cracking down on our hunters and our sport shooters and others. This is wrong. I have a firearms license, I have a restricted license, and I will always stand up for the rights of firearms owners here in Canada. You can look at interviews I've done before with the CCFR, the NFA, Canada's largest firearms rights groups. You can look these up on YouTube. We'll also link to them on my website. I have been an advocate for firearms owners for many years, and you can count on me to push back against the gun grab agenda. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.